2. Hi, and welcome to, this is OUYA Dev Support Office Hours. It's not OUYA Presents. It's OUYA Dev Support Office Hours. It's September 15th, the 15th of September, and this is the September 15th edition of OUYA Dev Support Office Hours. My name is Bob. Joining me today from a bunker somewhere in the Culver City area, Mr. Jared Yeager.
Good morning, everyone.
Somewhere nearby, not far away, Miss Kelly Santiago.
Hello. It's a million degrees here.
And further north in the Seattle area, Mr. Tim Groutman.
That's me.
The illustrious Mr. Tim Groutman.
So illustrious.
So normally we would have a tip from Alex, who is not with us today. He just got married yesterday. Woo! So congratulations to him. He normally would do a segment, Derp with Doherty, where he shares a seemingly basic tip from the game submission front lines. But he's not here. But he's happily being a married guy, a newly married person. So we can transition over to the following portion of the segment,
Jared?
which is just the facts with Mr. Jared Yeager.
Alrighty, I'll give one little derp of Doherty. For anyone out there who's submitting alphas or betas to us, it's always good to send an email to office hours so that we know to put your game in the alpha beta playlist on Discover so we can showcase you there. So please hit us up when you do that. But yeah, I got facts. I got facts coming out of my face for you right now. Some pretty cool info on the festival circuit. First, want to give a shout out to all the OUYA devs that were featured at the Boston Festival of Indie Games during the weekend. We had Nightlight Interactive with Whispering Willows, Double Stallion Games with Big Action Mega Fight, Dr. Mikey Studios with Zombie Hearts Chicken. Be sure to see that featured in October, appropriately so. And Lateral Damage by Chris Chung. So all those games, Whispering Willows, Big Action Mega Fight, Zombie Hearts Chicken, all on OUYA already. Lateral Damage coming soon thanks to Free the Games. Also wanted to let everyone know again, IGF submissions are open, so get your games ready for that. And then just before the weekend, IndieCade announced their 2014 game selection. There was over about 1,000 games submitted, and 6 of the games accepted for the festival are on OUYA. Start off, big congrats to Gamius with IO. That is official finalists, which means they're eligible for all awards. You'll be able to check them out in the finalist section of the festival and also at the OUYA booth. Groin Gravitators by Hulk Handsome is a digital select, along with Thralled by Miguel Oliveira and the Thrall team. Centrus as well by Samantha Coleman. And for esports gaming, we've got Toto Temple Deluxe by Juicy Beast and Knight and Damsel by MK Ultra. Knight and Damsel will be coming out later this year. Yeah, all those other selects are eligible for Audience Choice, Developer, and Media Awards. So big congrats to all of them. We'll be posting more info about them soon. And then on the Free the Games fronts, we had quite a few games get approved recently. Super World Carts got funded by One Legged Seagull. Kalina Hands in the Kitchen, there's a demo for that right now on OUYA. That just got funded. Stash was funded. Right from the Stars was funded. So we are up to 25 games funded by the Free the Games Fund, over $800,000 pledged to those games so far. So go to freethegamesfund.com to see all the ones that have been funded. We'll have hopefully alphas and betas for some of them coming out soon. And then on the front of games that are still eligible for funding, Duke Grabowski by former LucasArts team members is the current featured game. They're a little bit over 50% of the way funded. Still plenty of time left for that, and several other games eligible for funding, at least 6 more, with Tetropolis and a few others, which unfortunately I've got bad internet because I'm running all the streaming, so I cannot load that all up right now. But yeah, that's all the facts, man.
Yeah.
Back to you, Bob.
What's your high score in Growing Gravitators, Jared?
Probably not as high as yours. I'm practicing for E3 though.
Yeah,
You better bring it.
that's
You're
a
wrong.
challenging game.
It is. It is. It reminds me of like ability that you have to have. What's that game that it's not really similar, but the game you'd have to play sometimes at carnivals and stuff where you have to move the ring around like the spinning coil and you get very close but you can't actually touch it.
Oh yeah, like Great America or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Or like Operation, except if you're growing.
Yeah.
Good
Awesome.
times.
I just wanted to talk about it.
No, it's excellent. Actually, the other projects, so I give them the love they deserve. They're
Yeah.
still on free the games: Bubble Struggle Adventure, Enchanted Kingdom, Petropolis, Astro Style, and Royal Heroes for Ouya. So those are the, along with Duke Grabowski, the remaining six
Six
games
games.
that you can pledge to for free the games fund.
So 25 successful funded
You got it.
and 6 to go.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool,
it's pretty cool.
gotta say. All right, well, I'll make a note of that. Check those out.
Well, you look like you're in your like Saharan tent, like you've got like the sun coming down, and
It's funny you should ask because that's exactly where I am. No, this is my apartment came with these beautiful. It's like mid-century. I think it's like 70s. Like when the Brady Bunch, everything was like orange and green. So they're like these weird orangish
it's quite
things.
nice.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, man.
I like that you tried to say it was a fashionable choice.
At one point, it might have been.
In case your landlord's watching, you don't want to get kicked out.
Yeah, I think it's 70s though. It's not like the hip, cool mid-century stuff everyone's getting back into. But yeah, you guys play any cool Ouya games lately?
I got to play Pinball Arcade, just had an update, and got to play the Bram Stoker's Dracula pinball machine, and
Mhm.
that's a lot of fun. If you ever played it back in the day, it's just a silly, fun game. Speaking of which, actually, Season 1 and the Pro Pack of Pinball Arcade is going on sale for 2 weeks starting tomorrow. So that's going to be super fun. I know there's a lot of people on Ouya Forum that are jazzed for some Pinball Arcade sales. Muffin Night will also be 50% off
Nice.
tomorrow. So yeah, there'll be a lot of happy campers out there. And again, a shout out to Ouya Forum and devs. Always post about your games there, so you can get support and feedback from them. And also the fine gentlemen at Ouya Cast and Ouya Brew. They always run their show on the weekends, and they love having devs on it, including actually this upcoming weekend. Cohen Hacking of Shadowlight will be their guest dev. So definitely check that out.
Is Gary Oldman in the Bram Stoker table? He is.
Yes.
Oh man, Gary Oldman. What's he doing in there? Just hanging out.
He's hanging out. I think when you get multi-ball or one of the special targets, I think like a little plastic version of him like rises out of the coffin,
Yes.
and there's a part where I think like a ghost ball on a magnet travels across the table, and they've got some fun lines from him in there.
That's
I
awesome.
think because the licensing is so expensive, they're actually trying to kickstart the Addams Family pinball machine to add to that as well, because it's just that expensive to do. It's got all the voice work from all the actors. It's also the most popular selling pinball machine of all time. So they're trying to raise a little bit of money for that.
Yeah. Cool.
And I played
Um,
Adventures of Chris, which was on the PAX playlist.
Yeah.
We didn't end up being able to show it at PAX, but it's just super funny. Yeah, I think the writings is just really great.
I haven't even
Yeah.
played that yet. Is it?
It's fun.
There's
We
nothing
just
like getting popped like a balloon.
yeah.
Fighting against the gross. That cracked me up.
Yeah, we just ran a sale with them. The dev's really sweet. And yeah, definitely check out Chris Gwynn, if I'm pronouncing it right. Really sweet guy, really fun game. Definitely check it out.
Cool.
Yeah, we have our fair share of retro-style platformers, but I feel like the tongue-in-cheek style of it's just really clever and yeah, it's just like really well written. Makes me laugh.
What about you, Tim?
Yeah, I played some of that. I got all the way past the crow thing. It took me a lot of attempts to get past that level, and then eventually you get into more of a side-scrolling type scenario, and then it turns almost like a full RPG game with it's massive.
I need to check this out. I can't believe I haven't even tried this. I just played a bunch of Magnetic by Nature.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Ouya presents another amazing Ouya presents video.
Uh,
And excited to see Hardlander for this week.
oh yeah. Did you see the highlight we have from the Twitch stream of Magnetic by Nature and like James like nails this perfect magnetic swoop thing and then everyone in the room is just like,
Yeah, that was like right at the end when I was able to finally sign on because Twitch was being all crazy for me.
I need to link it. We'll link it in the
Yeah,
show
definitely do
notes.
the highlight. We should put that on social for sure.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
That he totally threaded the needle on that one.
Yeah, it was awesome. Hey Tim,
Yeah.
guess what time it is?
Me time?
It's time for the world to grok with Grotman.
Okay, cool. So I was going to do a two-part thing. So first, I'll show you some stuff on the Mac with the Corona game engine this time, and then go right into Micah stuff where the developer of UFrame is going to show us some things about optimization in Unity and all kinds of cool things. So I'll show you the Mac part first. It takes a little jury rigging, so let's see if I can get my Mac in this stream. So here we go. Maybe?
Hey, that's me.
Yeah, that's not the right one. Okay, hang on. You get a little preview, but I don't know if they're accurate or not. Nope. Close. 3 more to go.
Tim's art. Did you guys see Tim's
HTML
character?
input. Okay. Here, hang on. I usually go to the same screen, but since it's the Mac, I'm using some capture. Okay, what's it doing now? Nothing?
Nothing.
Three, maybe? Okay, I think that did it. All right, and then I hit F10. All right, and then I'm using the Elgato to link to my Mac, and then now I can use the Mac keyboard. Okay, and I was just checking in some stuff. Okay, cool.
So sorry, to recap, you're looking at Corona?
Yeah, so this is the Corona game engine. And, okay, so I probably could have had some links open. But Corona is one of the engines documented on our site. And in applications, I'm using Corona Enterprise and the Corona SDK, which also includes the simulator. So it's got 2 different modes, different price plans. There's free and pro users. Those people use the Corona simulator. And then there's Corona Enterprise, which is more like lets you do more of the Android type customizations. And then so Corona Enterprise runs on Mac. Corona Simulator will run on PC and Windows, or Windows and Mac.
Can I ask a really basic question?
Sure.
Why do some people like pick Corona? Like, why would you be inclined to work in Corona versus Unity or something else?
Well, Corona is Lua script, so if you're a Lua person, like Lua is common for game scripting and maybe working with Maya and Blender and Python people. It's just an area for depending on where people get started and what they prefer.
Cool.
So everybody has their preferences, and Corona deep down is a Lua script. And so if you're familiar with Lua script, I've set up some examples in 2 parts. So I did the usual virtual controller thing where I make a virtual controller example, which is open in the simulator here, where I show a picture of the controller, and then as the physical controller moves around, it moves these sprites and they highlight and when you hit buttons, and it'll show like the controller name when you hit whatever the controller is. And so that's a virtual controller one. And then I have in-app purchase example where it shows how to do like in-app purchases and checking for receipts and making purchases and that kind of thing. And to get these set up, I'm not going to go super in depth because I'm still like I've got it. I got OUYA Everywhere input working in Corona, and I got the upgraded to the latest ODK. So and that's working in the simulator, and I'm doing the next step where I get it working in the simulator so it's available on Mac and Windows, and I have to do like this publish process so that the plugin's available for everybody. But if you're on Corona Enterprise now, you'd be able to get these examples and test with it. And the difference here is like I've got a build easy script that I run, which builds the APK and installs it for me when I'm in the enterprise version. And in the simulator, it's got a way to export. So you just you do a file build process, and you can build for the various platforms that you want to build for. It also has a way to like view the device in different resolutions, so you can see what it would look like if you're on a 720 monitor, and it gives you a preview. And I was on 1080p. This is a good way to, even though I'm using Enterprise, it's a lot of like Java and Lua script, and I can fall back to the simulator to see like what it's going to look like. So my tools for working with this stuff are I was using Sublime Text to edit the Lua scripts. They also have a thing that gives you IntelliSense with Lua script, and that's the Outlaw IDE. So you can use that, or I just like working with Sublime Text a little bit more. And then on the Java side, I was using, where is it? I'm using Eclipse. So I've got the usual, like, you'll recognize if you've done any Android projects, it's got the regular Android manifest. And then I've added a custom activity to my Corona activity. And then there's a lot of common code here for the various game engines where the activity goes and it loads your signing key. And then it initializes the controller and gets the plugin started and waits for you to set the developer key. And then I put the OUYA Everywhere code inside of a view so that it's kind of isolated. And this part will help me get the OUYA Everywhere input working in the simulator because I'm going to wrap that in a plugin. So the difference between simulator and enterprise is in the simulator you don't have access to these Android scripts, but it has like a plugin online database thing that will install for you, and it's more of a easy plug and play type system. And so typically, I go to the top level here. Here we go. So I've got like an in-app purchases example and a virtual controller example. And a simulator normally is just in a Corona folder where you've got your Lua scripts and your images that it works with. And then I'm allowed to, like, with the enterprise, I can supercharge it, and I can have this Android folder where I do more Android and Java specific stuff. And that's how I can link to the ODK. And I can write my custom JavaScripts and have that connect with the Lua stuff. And I'll cover this more in detail in like a tutorial series once the plugin's published, and I'll go through how everything's talking together. Like there's a bridge between having your Java talk to the Lua scripts and having your Lua scripts talk back to Java. I've got a whole callback system in place and a way to like synchronize the calls and get it all working. It's magical.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of like a brief overview of Corona. I can switch projects by going in the simulator, and you just open a project by finding the main Lua script for that project. So if I go into the in-app purchase example in the Corona folder, I can open this main Lua script. And there we go. There's the preview of at least the layout, which I can see here, and then I do the backend stuff in Eclipse. And
So
if you want to see what the main Lua script looks like,
yeah,
here we go.
let me see it.
So for the virtual controller example, I made it pretty easy where you can import some global variables, have some helper scripts, and I connect it to the input and the UI. And then it's just a matter of like initializing some controllers and positioning where they're going to show on screen. And then that's it.
That's awesome, man.
I used to have some code that would use the built-in Corona input, but when I connected the OUYA Everywhere input, I don't need this anymore because I have my Java talking back directly to the Lua scripts. And then they can highlight various things, like input. All right, I'm going into it now.
You're a wizard, Tim.
So the input comes in.
Magical wizard.
You either have access events or key events, and this onGeneric motion event will tell me the controller number where the access event happened, what access it was, and then the value incoming, whether it's usually from -1 to 1. And then I can go through and detect which access it is, and I'm trying to make this look as much like the Java as possible. So it has the OUYA controller and all the access values that you're used to. And then I can position where the sprites go. And for some of these other ones, so the access events are mainly about positioning things. And then I have some button events where if a button happens, I either fade it in or fade it out. So if we look back at the virtual controller Lua script. Okay, so by default you get like this, the non-highlighted version, and then when a button's detected, it'll fade in a red icon or a red version of whatever the buttons are, and then you'll see them. So, and those are actually part of the virtual controller. So you can see, here we go, I'll load it in preview. Here we go. So that's an image of when one of the triggers is highlighted. It'll show that and over the top of these controllers. So you can be like, oh, okay, it was highlighted. Or like, here's the O button. There we go. So that's apparent. So all this is like detecting the input button presses and then toggling the sprite visibility on and off. And then in the case for like the sticks, I actually move it around a little bit using the access input. And then I do this thing where, because the camera, the picture of the controller is this, from this angle, I'd rotate the input a little bit so that it matches up with what you're seeing. And that's it. That's Corona. High level stuff.
That's awesome. Did you know that Corona means crown in Espanol?
That explains the Corona beer with their symbol of, I think it's a crown on it, right?
Yeah. Does it explain something else about this code?
Yeah, it's very
bring it home.
Noble.
Yeah. Bitum68 says, "Ahí no sabe." I don't know if he's saying AI no sabe, like the AI doesn't know. Does that
no
make
sabe
sense?
is that like no say? So
well, it's like he or she doesn't know, but I don't know what AI means. Could be like ahí, like they're just saying like, you know,
it's probably a pronoun.
Well, it's not, but I just don't know what it is. Ahí no sabe. So
okay. So that was a little about Corona. We can learn about UFrame now.
Sure.
Which is more GUI-centric.
Can you give us an intro to our special guest?
Okay. So Mike is here. He's the developer of UFrame. And UFrame provides a way to work in Unity where you can keep your art and your code separate. So if you work with a team, that's really good so that you can have designers come in, change what your art looks like without breaking the game. And it also has like a performance component where you can bind to events, and rather than having a million scripts always checking states and being slow, the the bound events will only fire when something changes, so it makes your code run faster. So there's two parts. The UFrame tool keeps your code clean. It makes it easy to prototype quickly and a ton of cool stuff. And Micah can show us all about it.
Yeah.
All right, hey guys, thanks for having me on here.
Yeah,
Thanks for doing, Micah.
So here, let me share my screen. All right, can you guys see it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so basically what Tim said is, it's basically a tool where you can kind of lay out the structure of your game, and it's kind of a planning and development tool all in the same time. So it's going to basically take this kind of like mind map of your game and generate a very maintainable structure for you to build your game off of. So it has a very unique approach to game development. And part of what that is have any of you ever heard of reactive extensions or reactive programming? Okay. So I only have a little bit of time, so I can't go into the full detail of everything. I've put together a small example, and I'll just kind of walk you through what I did. But if anybody wants to really check out more about what it's about, you can check out the Unite presentation on the Unity website, as well as our website at invertgamestudios.com. And I'm also going to take this opportunity to show some of the new features that are fixing to come out with UFrame called reactive state machines. So it's a completely new concept of state machines. It's different than what you're used to, but it really creates maintainable state machines. All right, so what I've done here is a very bare bones example, and what I have up here is the first step whenever you're laying out the structure of your game. So basically I've got a scene manager, which is going to basically defines a scene, and I also have a subsystem here called core. So this is kind of the first step. You want to lay out the various different subsystems or ways that you're going to categorize things in your game. So I could have like a core here which has things shared maybe among different scenes. I could also have a subsystem for like weapons, players, characters, vehicles, anything you choose. It's really mostly for organizational purposes. All right, so and the next step is once I've kind of laid out some of the subsystems, double-clicking on it, and it kind of jumps into a larger separated diagram specifically for this subsystem. And what I've got here is I've got like a game root where this is my actual game, and I've got an enemy and a player. So the key thing in this state is to not focus on any of the properties, but literally just define the entities of your game. This is very important and something people usually don't do. So I can just create, say a player property, and then I can just hover over it and click, and it shows me everything that I can connect to. So I can connect to another player. So this means that my game is going to have one player. I could just as easily create a collection of players, and that's just saying that my game is going to have many players. So, and there's a lot of stuff it does under the hood. I won't go too much more into all of this. I'm going to move on. And for this example, I literally just created an enemy, so I'm going to ignore these for now. So when I go into the enemy, and some of this stuff is new, and I'll go into and explain kind of how everything works. But so I've defined this enemy a little bit more, and the first step here is really define, what are the different ways I can display an enemy. So one is on the HUD. I'm going to display this enemy with some kind of HUD information, and I'm also going to display the actual physical character of the enemy. So these are two different components that will be generated for you that you can drop right into your inspector or on the game object, that both, use the information on the enemy to display something. And these components bind to the data, so whenever the data changes, the view will then respond to that data changing and do something in the scene or update the HUD based on when that data changes.
Okay, and we're looking at the designer, right? So this is...
Yes, yeah, this is the U-frame designer. So now I'm going to move on a little bit here. I'll come back more to this in just a second, but the enemy here is basically, this is my element where I'm going to have my information. You can see he has a health property, time to complete, time elapsed, the distance to the player, and the state. So this is the whole reactive state machine. If I click on the state machine, I can see I've got a wait for player in sight, attack player, recover, and idle. So the point of this isn't to say, hey, when he's waiting for a player to be in sight, or he's going to attack a player, or he's recovering. It's not about, hey, this is what it needs to do in the scene. I'm more or less just defining the different states and the transitions that are going to happen. So right here, I'm not going to say, okay, when he attacks the player, I'm going to go move this object over here. No, I'm just literally defining from a high level, what his state is going to be. So once I've kind of...
I had some questions this week about this, where somebody was asking, like, how do I add the AI for my game, for my first-person shooter game, so it's like Call of Duty? And a lot of this is good for, like, setting up those states, because there are various things that the enemy needs to do, and it's just keeping your design nice and clean here.
Yeah. So I'm not adding any actions. I'm not adding anything. I'm literally just adding states and transitions between them. So now the idea is to have triggers actually trigger those transitions. And how these triggers are created is basically the idea of a computed property. So a computed property like player in sight or player out of sight, or any of these green ones right here, they are values that are based on other values. So right here, this player in sight is calculated based on the distance to player.
Right, so that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times it's not just a field. You can look at an object and find out, like, it might have to run a method and calculate what's going on before you can react to it, right?
Exactly. So I get a very simple method for this player inside. So if I open up the controller here, and you can see it's already generated everything for me. And
so
I just focus on...
like, this tool is writing code for people.
Yeah, this code actually generates, based off everything you've defined here, it generates stuff under the hood. So like this controller base, this is all the boilerplate code to make everything happen. And gives you a nice clean place to where you can strictly focus on the logic of your game. So, for instance, this player in sight, we're going to say that the player in sight is calculated when the distance to the player is less than 10. But the key thing to note about this is that this player in sight is only going to be calculated when this distance to player changes. So it's not constantly polling in every update frame. It's only going to run anything when it happens. So your state machine ends up being reactive instead of constantly running.
Right, so you're going to get better performance because it's not always polling that field.
Exactly.
Or running that, and so you're going to get a faster game.
Yeah. So when I connect this player in sight to the player in sight transition, that means that whenever this player in sight is equal to true, it's going to trigger this transition. So this is all fine and dandy, but how do I actually, whenever I have connected my state machines, it's moving into different states, there's not anything that's going to actually move the character or make him, attack the other player, and that's where bindings come into play. So on my view, this enemy view, this is the character that's going to actually react and change when the AI state is changed, where I've added this property. So I'm going to bind to this AI state. So this binding is going to tell the view anytime that state changes, it's going to tell it about it. So if I open up this actual view here, which is also code that's generated, let me pull it into my view here. So it actually adds this method into my file for me. I can say when the AI state changed, I have strongly typed state classes here, which I can customize on my own if I want to. I can check if the state is wait for player inside state. And in this example, I'm just setting a material to the different materials I've defined up here. So when I added this view to a game object, you can see here I've got these materials. And my AI state binding is turned on. So when that state changes, it's going to run this way. So I wouldn't even have to create this view or anything to immediately be able to test my state machine. So if I hit run here, you can see he's currently in the wait for player inside. I've got my HUD view here, which is the game object, which has the generated HUD view that we saw on the previous diagram, and my enemy view. So from here, and I'll pull in the logic if I can fit it in here. So when the player is inside, which is my computed variable here, so the distance is less than 10. So I can test this and go over here and drag my distance to player down below 10. You can see he's now moved into the attack player state.
Okay, so in previous weeks we talked about like Playmaker and stuff, and I'm seeing some new things like the way that you're highlighting the state. It reminds me a little bit about Playmaker, where you can visually debug what's going on just looking at your designer.
Exactly.
Here. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a totally new concept, but the main idea is that it keeps your actual state logic separate from your actual implementation. So it actually generates this code where you could run all of this code in different environments. So one idea is,
before like this tool was like keeping the art and the code separate, and now you're even keeping the state machine separate from other stuff, which is just helping organization.
Exactly. So both of my views are bound to the AI state changed. So in my actual HUD view here, I'm just literally setting the label of this GUI text to the current state it's in. So this means I can always just take this out, and it's not dependent. This whole entire HUD view is not dependent on anything else in the scene. I don't have a million components I've connected together. It just all works.
Right. Okay, so if you were coding this, and you decided to remove a component, your whole game would break, versus you just turn it off right there, and it's still running, and it's still going to work. It's just a binding.
Exactly. And it allows you to more or less just focus on one thing at a time. So right now, I threw up this state machine. I can immediately test the pure logic of that. And I can also add in all kinds of different cool and unique ways to interlink roles and things together to make your game a lot more interactive and ultimately fun.
So you're saying that this could almost be like a test driver, where you can test out the different scenarios and make sure the logic's reacting the way you want it.
Yeah, and then once you've got that, then you go out and build the view, and whenever each state changes on that binding, I'm going to say, okay, you just moved into the attack state. Okay, play this animation, navigate to this, start swinging at the player, that type of thing.
And so it was either Mike or Tim that also alluded to revision control between artists and the programmer. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely.
And maybe some of the pitfalls that people can come into as well.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the most requested features that we're getting ready to release as well. And the new idea and what we've done to handle this is you have a shared project space, and then you have diagrams that belong to that project. So I can create another graph, which creates another file. So I've got this empty file here, but I can show things from other. So say in one diagram, one of my team members is working inside this core, and I can go in here and add my own stuff. So like when it's outlined in black, that just means it's a reference to it. I can't actually like input anything to any of this or do anything that's going to change this data because I'm not currently in the file that owns this data. But I can still build off of it. I could still click this guy. I could go in and add another view, but you see my view lives on this file. So it's not outlined like this one is. And then I can drag and I can reference that to the view. So I can build on top of what other people are working on without ever touching their file and have my own workspace to work in.
So I've done that a lot, right? Where you have another developer, they're working on something, and then you need to add something, and you touch their code, and chaos ensues, right? Versus this is keeping you're doing additional work, but you're not stepping on toes. Like you're keeping their stuff separate. You're in your own workspace, and that's super clean. So you're going to have a better functioning team.
Absolutely, and you decide, hey, I want to try out a different view. It's almost in a way kind of like branching. I can create a new graph, throw something in and extend it really quick, see if it works out. If not, I just delete that diagram and I'm right back to where I started.
Right. Okay, so the bad way would be like everybody's working in the same scene and you're like destroying each other. It's a war to see who checks in first versus these are separate designer files and you've kind of brought it out of the scene and now you can work independently.
Yeah,
but you're still
you can
working
just
on the same
beat someone if they touch your diagram file.
So if someone branches off, and then you can sort of see what they did and just like integrate it at some point.
Well, it all uses the same shared project space, so no matter what diagram I'm in, when I hit save and compile and it generates all the code, it's still going to generate everything from the project. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah. So it's like they can branch off and work on it, and then I imagine there's like you go back and review what they did, and if you like what they did, then you implement it, or
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can do that type of thing. And that's actually one of the final things we have to do before actually publishing all this new stuff is it's going to be kind of like Git, if you will, where if I'm in this diagram, I could almost create something and do a checkout, which would move it directly into another graph. And I can modify it, or I could just add a reference to it, modify it. If I want to keep it, I could push this onto the actual main graph. So we could say that this graph is the main graph that is used. It's for the game. If you want to add anything, use another graph. If we like it, it's working, we'll accept that and just move to other graph. And doing that is almost as simple as just hiding it here and go into my other graph, go into my view, and show the view here. Of course, this diagram will own it, but it's another line of code I haven't added yet.
I can see that happening. So like Bob makes a better AI. We test it out, and it's like, oh, Bob's got a better AI.
Totally.
You just go into his diagram, copy his AI logic right into the main game graph, and then there we go. The AI is suddenly using the better AI. And then you just remove the old AI graph.
Oh yeah, and another cool thing about this is since each element has its own controller, so if I added a super elite enemy, I would have another controller that derives from enemy if I told my inheritance to do that, and I can customize these rules for how the state machine behaves. But I can also go into the player here, a completely separated thing, and I can pull in this same state machine, create a property, link it to the state machine, and I can add my own computeds for those transitions. So I can reuse this whole state machine on any element in the game. Does that make sense? Or I'm just talking crazy?
This is part of the new stuff. It's adding like more of a logic diagram inside of the designer. So
Yeah.
It's hard to realize, but all these boxes are actually generating code files and stuff. And when he brings up the code, it's actually it had generated all the callbacks that you need for all the different events. So when you're actually writing code, you're just going into these callbacks and you add a little code.
Exactly.
You didn't have to create the class, and you don't have to always think about the hierarchy and where you're putting things because it's doing it for you.
Exactly. It's basically generating a model view model structure, slightly modified to fit Unity a little bit more, and the whole state machine thing that actually lives on your view model. So the idea is that it generates code that you didn't even have to think about. You didn't have to write any of the boilerplate code. You didn't have to take all that time to get all those benefits. You can immediately have those benefits with doing nothing more than just creating some diagrams. But there's a lot more we can do with this in the future too. Imagine you never have to write a test case. You've basically defined all of your elements here. We can go through your prefabs, extract all the data from it and generate unit tests. So each time you change something, you just regenerate the unit test, and that's a better quality control. We can also take that same data, export it to a website where you have, say you have, 100 different vehicles, and it generates literally a database of pages or a wiki for your game. Or we can take all the same information, plug it directly into some kind of cloud system where you didn't have to write any code to pull in your game data. There's just a lot of different things we can do with this, even authoritative servers. You just click a few checkboxes and you have authoritative servers.
So are we getting closer to the time that we're going to have a marketplace for the designer files? So you'll have like kits, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your game or FPS game, and can he just copy and paste the diagram from an FPS game and put it right in his game?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got a couple different guys working on starter kits right now. They're about to sell on the asset store. So it's a great way to have a starter kit because anybody can come in and easily edit things. It's just going to regenerate that boilerplate logic underneath and leave you with just modifying the small little bits and pieces in the code files. And
so
also,
you're telling me that we could make a FPS and we just have to copy and paste boxes. We don't have to actually write any code.
Pretty much. I mean, you'll change
cool.
logic, small logic, and stuff like that around, but for the most part, this is the general direction. And I've even got a guy working on a plugin because there's a full plugin API. You can literally create your own nodes, create your own custom code generators based on those nodes, all that kind of stuff. It's very easy to do. And one guy's actually making a plugin, and try to keep your mind sane here, but you can create nodes that is creating your own custom nodes for your own diagrams. Yeah, crazy, huh?
It's like Inception, right? It's code that generates code that generates code, right?
Yeah, that's how you get Skynet, man.
Exactly. I won't go too far down that because even it blows my mind.
Yeah.
All right, so where does somebody go to find UFrame?
It's on the asset store. The Unity asset store.
So
or you can buy it directly from us as well.
Yeah, I put it on my screen, but maybe you should show us the website about how, like, where they go, and then we'll post links to it in the show notes, of course.
We're on your screen if you want to do it, Tim.
Okay. Well, there it is.
All right, so here's the website. If you go to UFrame, there's documentation, video tutorials. We even have a roadmap and some of the features and things like that. So, I mean, there's a lot there. And we even have a pretty active IRC channel where people are pretty consistently chatting about Uframe, and really a lot of users that are very knowledgeable. So there is a small learning curve. My stuff
That's the
disappeared.
MVVM thing.
What's the? Oh yeah, yeah. There is
Yep.
a small learning curve to actually know what's going on. But once you learn it, it becomes very powerful. But getting you to that point is really helpful. Having a community of users that are really awesome and willing to help. And I mean, there is some just general chatter there too.
Yeah,
But
you didn't show them the tutorials too. So you've got like tutorials on how to make Flappy Bird with Uframe.
Oh
right?
yes, angry flappers in an hour. So now this is probably, I mean, these tutorials are really just to get you acquainted with the idea. If you're making angry flappers, you probably don't need a cannon to kill a mosquito, but just to help you learn the concepts it goes over in these set of tutorials.
I hate mosquitoes. Cool, man.
So you've got various sections here, right? So there's like making a whole game with Uframe.
Yeah.
You've got, like, if you want to drill down into like concepts and the project structure that he's doing, you've got sections for that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually a user-submitted tutorials by this guy named Centrio, and let me go into our forums here. He's got better ones. See if I can find it really quick.
All right, and then Bob, we've got some Q&A stuff going on. Do you want to find some good ones?
Yeah, I have one selected from Matthew Martino. Is asking, any tutorials that tell me how to install the ODK and make IAPs for Unity that are up to date. Most seem outdated, not really step by step for beginners.
Yeah, he's probably right about that. I've got the in-app purchase documentation and the legacy stuff, and I need to copy that over to the OUYA Everywhere doc, and I'll talk to Nick about that, and we'll update the documentation.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Matthew. Matthew also asked, is OUYA working on a network infrastructure for devs to use in their games, and if so, any ETA? So we don't have the ETA, I wouldn't say, but it's definitely something that's that we're looking at down the line. So we're just prioritizing work, and it's definitely there.
Right.
And we'll do the ETA as soon as humanly possible, so devs will be ready for it to integrate it.
And of course, you can always fall back to third-party plugins. So they've got like Photon, Parse. The Unity has its own networking components. So there's always third-party stuff there.
So he told me I pronounced it wrong. He used to say Tozalil. I can try Tozaleal. Tell me if that's correct. But he's saying, can someone help me with IAP for Construct 2? That's sort of a broad question, though, eh, Tim?
Yep, and I'm actually working on that next after I wrap up this Corona plugin. So I'm starting to add that for basically you go Construct 2 to HTML5, and then I'll have some methods that you can call that will add the in-app purchase stuff.
What would you guys recommend as the easiest path to get C++ code up and running on OUYA?
Well, I used to use the NVIDIA TADP or TAPD, whatever. It installs Insight, which has a bunch of Visual Studio templates. So it's as simple as going in Visual Studio and go File, New Project, and then you just say it's an Android native project, and you can choose whether you want to do C++ and Java or just C++, and it'll auto-generate the OpenGL surface for you and all the project files there. So I've got some links to that inside the Android docs. But yeah, if you like C++, you can do it right in Visual Studio. You can also do it in Eclipse and some of the other editors. But it relies on the Android NDK, so that's the native development kit.
We'll put links in the show
I'll put
notes.
links. Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
And that's we have like the GitHub show notes, and then we also link those from our YouTube channel, so you can look at the notes from the YouTube and then check all the cool stuff Tim and people went over. What questions can we answer? An IAP plugin to help out developers. Seeing a lot of questions for Unity and some bigger engines.
Right. So that's part of all the examples I try to make. So for every engine, I like to have a virtual controller example so people know how to work with the controllers. I like to add an in-app purchase example so that they know how to interact with doing purchasing and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's always in the plan of having those two examples in every engine. So Unity definitely has it. Yeah.
That's Killswitch from OUYA Forum. And they were talking about, Tim, they want you to do like a weekly short tutorial thing.
Okay, sure.
So maybe we can figure out something out. Well, I would like us to like publish it from the YouTube channel and like do like a minute or something, like super fast.
Wow. C++ in a minute. It mean void.
So we'll figure something out. Somebody suggested how to make a milkshake with Tim Groutman.
Okay. Smoothies. Blood.
Instructions unclear. Will we ever see the limited edition OUYAs again? Question mark, question mark, question mark. I don't know, Killswitch.
Is that a Killswitch question?
That was a Killswitch question. Dutch Legacy is asking about video chat. So we generally have like open Q&A. And then if you want to do like a video segment, you can email any of us, Bob, Jared, Kelly, Tim, and talk about what you'd want to come on the show. And so this week we had Micah talking about U-Frame.
Yep.
And if you want to come on the video chat and talk about your game or your project or anything like that, development on OUYA especially, we would love to have you. So email us, tell us what you want to talk about, we'll set something up. I can't answer this question because nobody answers this question ever.
Is Bob single?
And then, so I don't know about this one. Sim, you probably understand the question a bit more. Do you have any actual plans for implementing the use of alternate launchers, the functionality used to be there? Instead of going to default launcher, exiting via the menu will go to the stock OUYA launcher. So is he talking about like root? What's he talking about, Tim? Do you know?
Yeah, the launcher. So that's like the main thing you see when the OUYA launches. The whole Play Store, the whole people like to make their own. Like Cohen even made one of his own. And there's some examples online of GitHub projects where they just show they made their own. So there's quite a few. Although it's limited on what you can do with your own because we need to provide some APIs for people to do certain things. Like
so that's probably less. There's other things that we probably have to milestone before.
As far as they can get on their own would be like adding a Play Store section where it would show like all the icons for all the games that are installed. But they're going to lose like the ability to have the buy button or anything. It would be just a plain vanilla like launcher where they could launch games, but you can't buy from the launcher because of our security stuff, right? They need signing keys and all that, and that stuff only our launcher can do.
So cool idea in time, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. We're over, so we need to rush through the food game. Micah, so every week we do a food game where we talk about the best thing we ate in the last week. So get ready for that, Micah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So I will go.
Time to play.
First, when I was in San Diego, you may have heard of fish tacos, but I had a burrito version of a fish taco, and it was awesome because it's like, when you eat a fish taco and you want there to be more of it.
So you're saying you went to a Rubio's? I'm kidding. Let me guess. Did you go to Tin Fish?
No, it was called El Charro.
Ooh.
In La Jolla.
Oh yeah, La Jolla is great. Right outside the stadium, near where Comic-Con is, but convention center, there is a place called Tin Fish.
Mm.
They'll do like swordfish, fish tacos, and like fish burritos and stuff too. Highly recommend it. But your place sounds awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, you're up, Jared.
Ooh. Well, I've had some good stuff this weekend, and maybe some that's more elaborate. But I'm going to cut out the rest of everything I had. I had other stuff with this meal, but because it was so damn hot down here, the most satisfying thing I've had this week was on the menu yesterday. Went outside, ate outside, very hot, and they had chilled cucumber soup. And it may not be for everyone, but
Weird.
hot weather, like it would Arnold Palmer, and like it's like a gazpacho style. So,
Yeah.
like bits, I think, of mint and a little bit of pepper in there and everything. But it just kind of hit that spot to kind of just cool you down at like that
You eat it with a
5:30
spoon?
hour. What is that?
You eat it with a spoon?
Yeah, you have to use a spoon. I mean, you could take the whole bowl and if you want to. I mean, it's like a puree almost.
Yeah, it's like a cucumber smoothie or something.
Yeah, our baby loved it.
Do they cook it and then chill it?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it was really good. And all of a sudden, our baby's looking at it, and it's like, "What do you want, a spoonful?" And she just starts like sipping it down, and yeah, it hit the spot.
Can you beat cucumber gazpacho, Tim?
Yeah, probably.
No way.
I made some home-cooked store-bought lasagna. Pretty good.
Wait, what? Why are you? Wait, are you taking a dive? You told me about the stir fry you made last week.
Yeah. There's that too. Got thin-cut steaks. Made some of that with barbecue sauce. Yeah, I got the stuff for stir fry. Made a ton of stuff. I don't know.
That's funny. Tim is taking a dive. He's probably betting on the food game.
He's got side bets going.
He just bets on
Yeah,
every week.
sold the stir fry on Skype, and then all of a sudden comes out with frozen lasagna. Like,
Oh, man. Micah, you're up.
Man, I'm like the pickiest eater, and I pretty much just wake up, and work on U-frame. But so I pretty much eat the same thing every day, every meal. But this is gonna beat all of you guys. Van Camp's chili.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's what you have every day.
just about with cheddar cheese and Fritos.
Man, you gotta get a sponsorship.
It's amazing.
Dude, you should go to Austin, Texas. They do that in everything. They do like the Frito
Really?
chili burritos and stuff. That's amazing.
No, that's my invention.
That's
I invented that. Whatever, I'm gonna believe I
I
invented
could
it.
see a Frito quesadilla. Being good. Putting Fritos in a quesadilla, that would be delicious.
I don't know what it is about the Fritos, but with that chili and the cheddar,
I believe it. You sold me on it.
Yeah. Okay. So
it's amazing. I recommend anybody try it.
I'm gonna go ahead and give the win to our special guest today. It's Micah.
Oh, thanks,
And his
guys.
chili chips. Save some
Chili
for the
chips,
rest of us.
Well done.
Second place is Jared, and Tim with the home-cooked store-bought lasagna.
Right.
You could have been a contender, Tim. You threw it all away.
Yeah, but I made my bets. Everybody pay up now.
All right, cool. All right, guys. Well, see you next week when we talk about more OUYA Dev-related things.
Yeah, well, we got some good stories coming your way, everyone. So yeah,
Cool.
check in next week.
Yeah. All right. Bye for
everyone.
Jared Yeager, Micah,
Thanks, guys.
me. Bye, everybody.
You.